Yes, sir, we are meeting today. Representative Williams, you don't want to be talking about that too loud. The whole Capitol can hear. Okay, where's Representative Jackson? I need your prayers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning, thanking you first of all for this day, Lord, for we know that this is the day that you have made. And now, Lord, we ask your blessing upon the chairman, upon the leadership, Lord, upon all of us, Father, as we do the business on this crossover day. We need you more than ever right now, Lord, and we just ask for you to lead and guide us, give us wisdom, give us knowledge. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, sir. All right. This is my second term in this position, and I've always said I want to pass no more than 140 bills. Currently, we're at 131, so that means 9 for today. Now, I wish that was going to happen, but it's not. And most of those bills have been passed during the last few days, 20 and 25 here and 25 there. After a while adds up. But I've just, now my goal may be 200. So, because there's several bills out there that have not passed that need to be passed. For those who are listening, and this doesn't apply to y'all, but if you pass a bill out of committee and you do not come fill out the forms, it will not be heard. We've got several who've had bills passed out of committee that have yet to fill out their forms, and today's crossover day, and unless it passes out of the House today, it'll be live and well for next year, but not this year. So, and for those freshmen who are here, those of y'all, probably most in this room, remember the song by the Beatles called 8 Days a Week. Okay, today's going to be 8 days. There's going to be 2 of them, from now to about midnight, which is close to 16 hours. Isn't that right, Mr. Burns? That's right. Okay. So I would encourage all of you to, when you start getting upset, just take a deep breath and walk off. Because I've seen tempers flare, and a few years ago, 2 friends of mine their noses were about that far apart, and it all happened on crossover. And then Sonny dies the same kind of way. So just take a deep breath, walk away, then you can come back and discuss it. Okay. Today, the format is that we will listen to new bills, give you a chance to ask questions. We've already set the original calendar for today. We will not set a supplemental calendar right now. We'll wait probably to see how the voting goes this morning and see at what point we are shortly after lunch, and then see how things are going. We'll probably have another one somewhere. So we'll probably have 2 more supplemental calendars. That has been the procedure for the last several years anyway. So, okay, our first representative is Representative Bonner. Now, I want to tell y'all something about him. Remember the other day that I said, I had a red pen and a green pen. If you ever had a red mark on it, it was probably dead. He brought me 2 green Sharpie pens today. And it just so happened that he had his 2 bill numbers written on a little card on it.
I knew it'd be a long day for you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to
You're
make sure
exactly
you
right, but we're going to have fun. Go ahead on House Bill 1 and House Bill 534.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 1 is on page 1. It's the first under modified structure rule. This is a First Amendment Protection Act. We'd actually passed this out last year, but did not get an opportunity to vote on it on the floor. But it does two things. It protects what students can say by ensuring that public universities and colleges do not ban any express activity while on campus, so long as that their conduct is lawful and does not disrupt the functionings of that college or university. It protects where they can speak by banning free speech zones or areas of campus that are designated for free speech, rather than all the commonly accessible areas of campus. And then secondly, it clarifies that universities can impose published reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on speech that are content neutral and not directed towards any specific group. Those are the two components of the bill. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, you can do 534 now.
Yes, sir. House Bill 534 is on page 2. It's towards the bottom under modified structure rule. This is a part of the governor's initiative to go after illegal street racing. The bill does two things, a number of things, but it seeks to go after those that organize this activity. So it creates two additional offenses. One is promoting or organizing an exhibition of illegal drag racing or laying drag, and then reckless stunt driving. And the intent of this, Mr. Chairman, the folks with law enforcement came to the governor and said this was another tool they needed in order to help to eliminate this activity of illegal street racing.
So basically what it does, it strengthens the penalties.
That's correct. It actually creates two new penalties, Mr. Chairman, and it allows law enforcement to go after those that are actually organizing this activity in addition to those that are participating.
Okay, you've got a couple of questions. Who's 72? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. What are the penalties, the fines, jail, misdemeanor, felony? Can you just define it?
So for the, it does create a misdemeanor of a high aggravated nature for any person that knowingly promotes or organizes an exhibition of illegal drag racing. And for those penalties, we made those penalties essentially match what is in current code for DUI. So there are first offenses all the way up through third and fourth offenses. After the third offense, that vehicle that was a part of that is subject to seizure.
Okay. Representative Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing this bill. It's very much needed, particularly in the metro area. A couple of questions. Can you tell me, does this apply only to quote-unquote public highways, or does this also give law enforcement the tools they need if this were happening, for example, in a shopping mall parking lot, which is a public space but private property?
Sure. So unless the individual has express authorization from the property owner, law enforcement has the ability to go in and prosecute under this law.
Thank you for that. And then second, I presume you know that there is a Senate bill working in regard to this as well.
Correct. Senator Jones is working a bill that seeks to address the same thing. It's got a number of different components, but I know that the governor's office is committed to working with Senator Jones as that bill comes over to the House.
I appreciate that because this is a very big issue. Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Where? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there forfeiture language in this bill as
There
far as
is.
taking someone's car? What how does that happen?
So it is, again, it matches the current DUI statute. So after the third offense, the vehicle may be seized. There's language in there to address the fact that, to give some discretion as to whether or not that vehicle happens to be the primary vehicle for the family and that type of thing. So it does give some judicial discretion in that.
Okay. I don't see any more hands raised or buttons pushed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gilliard, House Bill 48. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to your our
Take
distinguished
your
committee.
mask off so we can hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman and members of this distinguished committee, I come to you today, Mr. Chairman, I want to ask humbly as I come to present House Resolution 204, and just ask for your grace on House Bill 48 to present that also.
Okay, go ahead with 48.
Okay? Thank you. Today I rise to present to you House Bill 48, LC 500201S. This is a bill that commemorates 33 of the original black legislators in 1868. And these were members that unfortunately were not allowed to serve, and even 14 of them were killed. They're called the original 33. This is simply a bill that gives a commemoration of a template, not a statue, a template in the Capitol. And I want to thank Chairman Green and our committee. We did an amendment to ask the Capitol Arts Commission to get involved, to tell us how and where we could actually execute a template with 33 names exemplifying the original 33. And so with that, I ask for your favorable consideration in recognizing these 33 leaders, the original 33.
Okay. Anybody in the back got their hand raised that I can't see? Okay, thank you, sir. I see no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Resolution 204, LC 392919. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, on last year, we brought this into state properties, and we had a favorable consideration to recognize the former judge, Willie LeVette Sr. He was a Savannaian. He practiced law, not only his tenure in school, he ended up serving here in Atlanta in the juvenile court system, did a lot for our young people, advocated for young people in CASA, and also gave hundreds of scholarships to young people as he came from our community and was afforded the opportunity to go to Emory and Harvard. So we're asking in Savannah, Georgia, we have the Savannah Regional Detention Center, that this center be renamed the Judge Willie LeVette Jr. Juvenile Justice Center. We have worked with Commissioner Oliver from the Juvenile Justice Department, as well as all of the judges in Savannah, Georgia's juvenile court system are all in agreement. And as we work with the family, there are no expenditures dealing with just the signage if this were to come to pass. I ask for your favorable consideration on House Resolution 204.
Okay, see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Representative Carpenter will be next. House Bill 120 and House Bill 562.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm so excited about presenting this bill. I went and had a burrito for lunch and got my hair cut at a Dominican barbershop yesterday. House Bill 120 would seek to allow DACA recipients in the state of Georgia to pay a rate that's similar to in-state tuition, or up to 110% of that. This bill would strictly apply to individuals that have graduated from a Georgia high school, received a Georgia GED, and have been in the state since 2013. It only applies to colleges that have capacity, and it will not apply to schools that are full. So they will not be taking other citizens' places at universities and colleges. It simply allows them to achieve better things and pay more in taxes.
Okay, any questions? Yes, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, is this patterned somewhat after the border waiver students, the tuition that we give to students from surrounding states that on average actually have lower GPAs than Georgia residents at those same colleges? I don't believe that's true of these students, but it is true of the border students.
You are correct, and just some notes on these kids. 98% or 99% of these kids graduate from high school. 97% of these kids are either employed or in college, and 80% of them have been here 15 years or longer. So these are kids that we have educated through our K-12 system, and we're just saying let them pay a rate that they can afford so that they can go on and further their education and be productive members of society.
So they would pay a rate similar to students that did not attend Georgia high schools and come from surrounding states with lower GPAs, lower graduation rate, and a lower in-college GPA than Georgia residents.
You are correct.
Thank you.
Representative Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you speak to why the age for them is 30 and not younger?
So no, this is just the cap on the top side. So it would be anybody from that's currently 30 or younger. They would be able to apply for this opportunity rate. Oh, I'm sorry. So it just caps it, just saying, look, I don't, if by the time folks are 30, they have kids, it's kind of hard to get back into school.
Okay, thank you. House Bill 562.
Absolutely. 562 is a simple bill. We passed it out of the House last year. It would basically give some protection to DFACS case managers while performing their duties. We had some issues around the state where folks were getting called into magistrate court with the warrants issued, and we're just saying allow these warrants to be reviewed by a probate judge or higher, similar to how we do with police officers and school teachers.
Okay, see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Representative Maynor, House Bill 138.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. House Bill 138 allows local law enforcement agencies to post violent crimes at apartment buildings on their website.
So the residents there, will know what's going on.
Absolutely, yes. And I'd love your favorable consideration.
Okay. All right. See no questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Douglas, House Bill 164. 164. Oh, I guess he's not here. Okay, Representative Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 231 would extend temporary protective order civil relief to victims of domestic violence and dating relationships.
Run that by me again. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. House Bill 231 would extend temporary protective order civil relief to victims of domestic violence and dating relationships.
Okay. See no questions. Thank you. Oh, hold on. Representative Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author of the bill, is it not true that these TPOs are currently limited to just married people or people that have been cohabitating? And in fact, many people in dating relationships, the young, more often than not, there's a lot of trauma and abuse by the females, and this would give the flexibility to protect these young women. Is that not true?
That is true. Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did Representative Douglas come in? Okay. Representative Saines, is he here? He was running a little late. Okay, Saines is not here. Okay, Representative Jones, House Bill 389. House Bill 389.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm here this morning to present the substitute to House Bill 389 LC 364746S. Would you like me to go through it real quick?
Yes, sir.
This is a couple of things that this bill is doing. For those of you in business, you know that there is possibly a classification issue within the state of Georgia, meaning between the classification of a W-2 and a 1099. Currently, in Section 1A of the statute, it tends to be very broad. So what we did was we put 7 sub-bullets off of the Sky King case out of the Georgia Appellate Court to basically tighten that up a bit so that we didn't create such a wide berth. We then asked the commissioner to basically take the totality of those 7 as opposed to giving the commissioner such a wide berth and latitude in terms of the determination. And then finally in Section 2, what we wanted to do was we wanted to give the commissioner a set of penalties that was based on the size of the business. So the size of the business, the determinant fact is 100 employees. So for less than 100 employees, each action that the commissioner finds that the individual is not properly classified could go up to $2,500 as a penalty. And I want to be stressed that up to $2,500. And then if it's over 100 employees, then for each misclassification, it could be up to $7,500. You'll then see after that, we ask the commissioner to take the totality of the circumstances into account. We understand, especially for small businesses, that the classification of employees tends to be a little bit difficult. So we hope for those mom and pops, the first or second time might be a slap on the wrist, whereas if it's your 10th time, it's clear that there's a pattern there, and we would expect the commissioner to go a bit up on the penalty scale.
Okay. See no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Reeves, House Bill 479. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. House Bill 479 is the overhaul of the Georgia citizens arrest law. It takes away the generic right for a private person to commit an arrest upon an individual, and it patches in other common sense areas where the right to detain somebody is appropriate under circumstances. I'll be happy to stand for questions.
Okay, see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Representative Crowe, House Bill 495.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Morning.
Members of the committee. This House Bill 495, this is a GBI department bill. It is basically codifying what is already in practice, is moving a position from the GBI back over to the Sexual Offender Registration Review Board, SORB, and retaining one position at GBI to do background investigations and provide reports to SORB that they can't pull themselves through GCIC and NCIC.
Okay. See no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Dickey, House Bill 575. Morning, sir. Right there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, 575 is the very last bill on your blue sheet on the structured rule. The heading is a little misleading, but this is our Macon Bibb OLAS bill that allow the citizens of Macon Bibb to vote to increase their sales tax by 1 penny to offset ad valorem property tax. And you are probably familiar with it, Mr. Chairman. I think the only other place in our state that allows it is Columbus. So only consolidated cities, counties have the opportunity to impose this. So after a lot of back and forth for many years, we have another bill to possibly allow citizens to vote on this.
Okay. Well, I see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Chokas, House Bill 631.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 631 will allow local governments with emergency 911 systems to collect, store, and disseminate information that is voluntarily submitted by parents or guardians of individuals that have a physical, mental, or neurological condition that impedes his or her ability to communicate. There is no opposition to this bill that I'm aware of. The measure has no fiscal impact to the state. And this measure will allow parents or guardians of autistic children or adults to voluntarily submit this information to their local E911 centers. Thereby, first responders will have this information in their database and be better prepared to deal with the occupants of the residence. This measure improves public safety and will bring peace of mind to the parents of individuals with autism and other developmental disabilities. Are there any questions?
See no questions. You've got 691 now.
Yes, sir, I sure do. Thank you, sir. House Bill 691 will provide a definition for startup business entity within Title 50 relating to the Department of Economic Development. This is an important step to attract and grow innovative new businesses in the state of Georgia. This legislation will allow the Department of Economic Development to focus on first-time entrepreneurs with innovative ideas across a wide range of industries. There is no opposition that I'm aware of, and this measure also does not have any fiscal impact to the state. This measure will assist the Department of Economic Development in attracting and recruiting startups The state of Georgia will be one of the first states in the nation to actually define startup in code. This measure will not only assist Georgia in maintaining its position as the #1 state in the nation to do business, but it will also show that the state of Georgia is serious about innovation and growing jobs. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Y'all have a great day.
Representative Yarda. House Bill 681.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to present House Bill 681. It says that the State Board of Education shall prescribe a program of study in financial literacy, and this is to be completed in high school. The goal behind this bill is to help students develop a basic understanding of financial concepts, and a strong foundation in financial literacy can help with life goals, using debt responsibly, savings, retirement, and running a business. Also, it can be helpful in helping students learn how to balance checking accounts. Today, it's estimated that 4 out of 5 U.S. workers live paycheck to paycheck, and lacking financial literacy skills can lead to poor credit, bankruptcy, even foreclosure. I really believe the skills learned in a financial literacy course will prove valuable the rest of the student's life. And we work with the Department of Education to make it flexible for the school system so they could work this course into the framework of existing coursework. So I'd ask that you consider this bill. I think it's a good bill, and thank you for letting me present it, sir.
Okay, hold on. Speaker Pro Tem.
Yes, sir. I had a question of the representative.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it allow them to to substitute this for economics?
Yes, ma'am, it can.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am,
good.
it can.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Representative Smith, House Bill 640. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Good to see everybody out this morning. I bring to the Rules Committee HB 640, Committee Sub LC 3929990S. And, Mr. Chairman, this bill is remedying a situation that we've seen occur over the last year due to COVID of probate court judges across this state. Not every one of them, but there are certain probate court judges in this state. They're not accepting applications for a weapons carry license. So this legislation would actually correct those issues and provide for a private right of action in the event that these probate court judges do not accept these weapons license applications. Also, it would empower the probate court judges in this state to accept applications online. They can go out and purchase a software program that would allow them to accept these. Also, they can accept them by mail. It also, in the bill, provides for municipalities across this state have been sitting on large caches of weapons and have not been auctioning those off. This would provide that every 12 months the municipality would have to auction those off to bidders that come and bid on these weapons. And also, the bill provides for a private cause of action should these municipalities not abide by the law. Also, you'll see in the bill that it repeals the prohibition against carrying weapons in churches and places churches on equal footing with other private property owners. You'll see that that's a bill that harkens back to Jim Crow laws passed shortly after Reconstruction, used to prohibit African Americans that were newly freed from being able to carry weapons. You saw that in African American churches you had a lot of political rallies, and that bill was, or this law was put in place to basically leave them defenseless against terrorists such as the Ku Klux Klan.
Okay, you've generated 3 questions. Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Counselor, we passed a bill, I think it might have been Representative Ballinger's, that also addressed the probate court and the issuance of licenses. Are we in the same code section here as that bill was, or do you know?
I believe it's there about in the same code section, Mr. Chairman, and I can double check and see for you.
You might want to see if we'd be affecting the same code section with two different bills.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, it's not true that some probate judges are holding back issuance of permits for 3 to 6 months.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think the most egregious situation that we have observed in this state is where there is a probate court judge that will not be accepting any applications until September. It's just an arbitrary rule that's been made by this probate court judge. So there are other instances of where some people in a metro county had to wait from December until this month to even put in an application for a weapons carry license.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can, the other one. When we we put churches in the aspect of being private property, does it, from the bill as it stands, it will stand, does it increase or decrease the penalty on a Georgian that carries illegal in a church?
So it would actually increase that penalty to a full-fledged misdemeanor. I believe the code section concerning the penalty actually states that it's a $100 fine currently. As this code section stands right now, it's for the lawyers in the room, it would be a strict liability offense. You step foot in a church that doesn't allow concealed carry within their congregation, you're automatically in violation of the law. This would change that from a strict liability offense to more of intent having to be proved. If you were to go into a church that didn't allow concealed carry, you would be asked to leave, and then if you did not leave after being asked to, you could be charged with trespass.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what, lights are starting to light up here now. Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman, is it not true that on the section on the church carry, this would correct a problem that we've had since this law was passed back in 2014 or 2015, that we've had a lot of discussion with a lot of the houses of worship that had concerns that they could not appoint certain security people in their churches, and by doing this gives the church the latitude that they don't have to break the law, which has been normally done behind the back door by treating these properties as personal or as private property.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. This would put them on the same footing as other private property owners.
Is it not further true that the language that was crafted in here to deal with the probate judges and the issuance of a legitimate concealed weapons permit, that they've been inundated not only but by the virus but by the numbers of applications, and that the language in here is good for the Second Amendment rights of people, plus it gives them the latitude to try to work through this so that then they can get caught up at some point?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. That's part of why it was included in this legislation, to allow them to accept applications for weapons carry permits online and by mail.
Is it not true that this is a good bill that does an awful lot of cleanup that's been left undone for the last several years?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thanks to yourself and Chairman Jaspers.
Okay, and number 72, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Allen cleared up one point, because my experience has been there were no nefarious reasons down my way. It's just that they were overwhelmed. When Walmart runs out of bullets, a lot of people buying something. So, but my big question is, if I might, on the church carry, what if a church does not have what we've talked about in the past, a sign that says no weapons allowed, and a person comes in You know, where do we stand on that? And the second part is, I don't think you've ever been to a lively black Baptist church conference. You don't want no guns in there, but you answer that first part.
Thank you for the question, Representative. So basically, when this bill passed back in, I believe it was 2014 or 2015, I was legislative aide here to a couple of reps. And I know at our church, in response to that, we actually put in the rules of our church that we would allow for concealed carry for every member. So I would think that any parishioner or potential parishioner looking for a new church family would need to read the rules of that church, and that would be a way to catch whether they would be allowed to concealed carry. It wouldn't require that churches put a sign up that they didn't allow concealed carry or allowed concealed carry. This provision is really getting to the fact of this was a strict liability offense where you just violated it by committing the act itself, and this would require that you would actually have to intentionally it would provide an intent portion to the act itself in addition to the act.
Okay, Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you. Just some clarification, I guess. So going forward, would a church be able to prohibit concealed weapons in the church? And
Yes,
what would they need to do if that's the case?
Yes, they would. They don't necessarily have to affirmatively deny that or prohibit concealed carry. They would have to actively put a rule in their church rules that would allow for concealed carry.
Okay, we've got two more questions, that's going to be it. So we can have discussion on the floor if it makes it. Representative Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got confused when you were discussing, okay, how things change. That the pastor would have to go up to somebody that brought a weapon into the church and ask them to leave. But if they didn't leave, that there would be, is that a bigger, is that more strict and a bigger penalty than what we had before, or a lesser penalty?
It's a bigger penalty, Madam Chair. The misdemeanor, you have a range of a fine from $0 to $1,000, and from jail time from 0 to 12 months in jail.
Okay,
Under the change, if this change were to be passed, as we have this language stricken in the legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Setzler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, I wanted to follow up, I think, maybe a clarifying point to Representative Williams' question. I think to address the gentleman's question in a way that perhaps would be more clear to me, isn't it true this bill, if someone were to carry a firearm onto a church property that hadn't put out a policy allowing anybody, they would simply approach them and say, you got to leave. And if they don't leave immediately, it's criminal trespass. And this bill now invokes the full measure of criminal trespass, which could be up to a year in jail, $1,000 fine. So it does put more teeth behind the get out of here, you're not authorized with that. But if someone came onto their property, whether it's in their car or on their person, isn't it true, the church would simply have to tell them that's not authorized here, and they would have to immediately leave.
That is correct, with one caveat, Mr. Chairman. The weapon in the car situation, that would be treated a little bit differently, but the rest of that statement would be
on their
correct.
person. Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, Representative Schofield, H.R. 188. H.R. 188.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. House Resolution 188 creates a state work group to increase chronic disease information and screenings in high-risk communities. This bill has no opposition that I'm aware of. In fact, the medical community as a whole supports this resolution. There's no fiscal note or responsibility required, and Mr. Chair, this resolution will greatly impact those with chronic disease.
Okay, see no questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Neal. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you to the chairman committee. I bring to you House Bill 236, which allows for law enforcement security checks for persons who are granted protective orders or restraining orders by a judge. The bill is carried with bipartisan co-sponsors and support from the Georgia Chiefs of Police, Georgia Sheriff's Association, and Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council, who all came to speak to the bill during the multiple committee hearings.
Okay. Well, thank you, ma'am. No questions.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Representative Momtahan, House Bill 327. Morning, sir.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
We're good.
Okay.
Just living the dream.
Hey, you and me both. Better than I deserve. That is for sure. Okay, so today, Mr. Chairman, I have House Bill 327. So this legislation addresses a serious and growing problem throughout the entire state of Georgia. It doesn't matter where you live or shop, urban, suburban, rural. This activity happens, and it's devastating to stores and jobs and customers. It does not matter what size retailer you are. Main Street or Wall Street, big or small, if you're a retailer in Georgia, then you will eventually be a victim of organized retail theft. This legislation has been many years in the making, and what it does is it holds merchants who purchase gift cards for cash on the secondary market to the same standard that we currently hold pawn shops. Allows some nullo contendere pleas to count as convictions for the purpose of misdemeanor aggregation of crimes, and it creates a new offense of organized retail theft. And with that is the bill.
Okay, well, I see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Always a pleasure.
Okay, well, we'll bring in Representative Saines, House Bill 258. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Did you have a long drive up this morning?
It was long, but I was happy to do it after 10 days of being by myself.
Yeah, you mean that's not good company?
It didn't. I didn't find it to be very hospitable. Members of committee, I have LC 280256 to present. If the chair.
Go ahead.
It's a very short bill. It adds two provisions to sexual battery and aggravated sexual battery. It allows for those, in circumstances when the victim is under the age of 16, the Supreme Court decided in State v. Williams that it was required to be placed in text that the consent of a victim under 16 is not a defense. So that is what it adds. It simply adds that under the age of 16, the conduct for purpose for sexual arousal on the part of the alleged offender or alleged victim, consent of the alleged victim shall not be a defense for prosecution.
Okay, see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But you're saying you are not good company, huh?
Not compared to the fine folks here.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll start with committee members now. Representative Dempsey, House Bill 291.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 291 is simply an extension of allowing one more school, most likely just one, to avail their students of the tuition equalization grant. In the 2011 legislative session, we passed a measure that was very tight to create an opportunity for our private colleges and universities to have some tuition relief for their students. It is paid out in a quarter or semester. It's $317 per quarter and $475 per semester. This will help expand and increase the capacity of nursing education.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, ma'am. See no questions. All right. Let's see. Representative Martin, 617, House Bill 617.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and members. This is dealing with name, image, likeness for our student athletes in post-secondary public and private colleges in Georgia. There's an ongoing conversation of should these individuals or can these individuals be compensated for the use of their name, image, and likeness. What this bill seeks to do is put our student athletes and our post-secondary institutions in the conversation that's sure to take place at the national level with the intercollegiate athletic associations, NCAA types, NAIA types. So this doesn't have a direct impact today, but is necessary should that be adopted nationwide. Ask everybody's favorable consideration so that we can put this up and keep our student athletes treated on a positive, in a positive manner.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. See no questions. All right. Representative Stevens, House Bill, HR 248. Have you got?
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 248 creates the Savannah Logistics Technology Innovation Corridor, which is a long word. It just essentially those hospitals and colleges and technical schools around the Georgia ports and also around the Georgia Tech Center in Savannah creates a corridor that essentially makes them eligible for some federal grants.
So you added Georgia Southern into that, right?
Absolutely.
Is that okay, Mr. Burns? Is that okay to add Georgia Southern into that corridor they talking about? Okay, just want to be sure. That's Grevin County too, I understand. Up and coming county. All right, thank you, sir. No more questions on that one. All right, Representative Jaspers, House Bill 653.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the committee. This bill would allow our pharmacists to continue to offer testing for COVID and antibodies for 12 months after the federal state of emergency is over with COVID. And I also add, I want to thank Chairman Cooper for being a great mediator in working on this bill. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Well, very good. No questions. Thank you. Okay, Representative Kelly, House Bill 714.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Come before this committee with House Bill 714, a committee sub that came out of the Special Committee on Access to Civil Justice System. This looks to address two issues where we've been trying to get both sides of the bar in agreement on over the last couple of years. First section of the bill deals with 91167.1, which is how offers and demands are made in terms of bad faith provisions in our civil justice, in our civil practice code. And we've tried to work an agreement between both sides of the bar. We're still trying to get there on that, so may come back to this committee with a tweak or two. But Section 2 deals with bad faith provisions as it relates to uninsured motorist coverage. It's a measure that this House has passed several times before, and it's just got integrated in this bill as part of the overall compromise, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, see no questions. Thank you, sir. All right. Representative Ballinger, I think you have a substitute for House Bill 272. It's LC 480410S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is substantially the same bill. We just had to correct a couple of errors, editing errors from Ledge Council. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, see no question. Let's go ahead and vote that out, and so we can just look at the substitute next time we get together. So it's LC 480410S. Do I hear a move? Got a move and second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, passed as.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, who is presenting substitute for House Bill 60? Okay, well, we'll hold on that one to our next, or our first supplemental calendar for today. Okay, Representative Douglas is outside. He has House Bill 164. 164. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for my tardiness. Got a lot going on this morning. A lot of local people. One of my commissioners.
Now, wait just a minute.
Okay.
There's a lot going on, but I'll tell you that there was somebody who made an appointment with the rules chairman this morning at 8 o'clock. Didn't show up till 10 after. He had about 1 minute of my time. Wow. You don't come late here. You see these people out here?
Yes, sir.
You need their vote.
Yes, sir.
You want to take that mask off so I can hear you too.
Thank you.
And I'm through harassing you now, so you can go ahead. So.
That's okay. I'm used to it.
I understand. I am too.
Well, thank you for your time. I have a great bipartisan bill to help our citizens locally that's been coming through this transition as we get through this pandemic, on helping them on their prescription drugs, just for individual, not for groups. They'll save them 80% at the counters. That's the gist of the bill, plain and simple.
Okay. Very good. I see no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
It won't happen again.
It won't happen. Okay. I get told that a lot, but it never happens that way. Okay. We have gone through all the bills that are being requested. Like I say, just keep an eye out. So every time you see me go down to the well, no booing. Who's number 13 over there? Okay. Chairman Setzler.
Mr. Chairman, there was a bill that passed out of committee last week, midweek, and I got the form in on Friday. Would it be appropriate to ask for it at another meeting, or would it be appropriate to ask for it?
Well, while we got a little time, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, HB 358 is a bill that passed unanimously out of the Judiciary Committee. I appreciate the chair's work and staff to get it the form it is now. It's a bill that addresses the emergency powers of the governor. It clarifies some things in 30-day states of emergency, but creates a circumstance where extensions of states of emergency would be allowed up to 90 days. It would also allow the legislature to convene virtually if needed to authorize or discuss states of emergency. And then also would allow the legislature to have some influence over the scope and the breadth of the emergency conditions. So, glad to take questions.
Any questions? Okay. Representative Williamson.
Thank you, Representative Setzler. Or Chairman Setzler. I have not seen this, and I don't pretend to be an attorney, but when you say virtual convening virtually of the entire Georgia General Assembly, does this measure limit it strictly to this emergency order? It's not opening the door to future virtual.
The governor calls the legislature to affirm a state of emergency, or if we were to convene ourselves purposely for that purpose, within 38-3-51, only within that code section. If something prohibited people, for example, from getting to the Capitol, for example, it would allow the General Assembly, by its rules, subject to the rules of the House and the Senate, it would give us the authority to do that and clarify that we could by our rules.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no questions from anyone. All right, that's the last bill that we've got to hear. So just keep your eye on the well today. So like I said, there'll probably be a couple of supplemental calendars. Meeting's adjourned.